Predating the movie Space Jam by more than a year, Looney Tunes B-Ball takes the over-the-top 2-on-2 turbocharged hoop stylings of NBA Jam and combines it with the cartoon antics of 8 Looney Tunes characters. Each character has different strengths and weaknesses such as speed, stamina, and three-point shooting ability, and each has a cartoonish defense move. For example, Taz breaks into a tornado spin, knocking down anything he touches. Tournament mode lets 1 or 2 players pick a character and challenge all the other characters. You can set the length of the quarters and choose from 10 difficulty levels. Sometimes a gem will appear on the court that you can grab for buying offensive and defensive acting plays. When a player makes 3 baskets in a row, his attributes get a super boost. The game, which is as fun as it sounds, is fast-paced and has excellent cartoon-like graphics, known as Looney Tunes basketball in some other regions. It makes our list at 100 of the top SNES games of all time. A port of Capcom's 1991 arcade game, which was the sequel to The King of Dragons, Knights of the Round is similar to Golden Axe, but with better graphics and lesser gameplay. Players assume the role of Lancelot, Percival, or Arthur, each of whom is ranked according to power, defense, and speed. As you walk, jump, and battle your way through the game, you can grab magic items including crystal orbs for defeating all on-screen enemies, horse statues for summoning a noble steed to your side, and knight statues for extra lives. The game also has RPG elements, as you can pick up Merlin's staff for increasing your experience level and treasure chests and silver tea sets for increasing your experience points. Gobbling up roast turkey, fruit platters, salad platters, and milk will refill your health meter. Each player can pull off a special Mega Crush Sword attack, but it decreases your health. The game, which is loosely based on the Arthurian legend, has 7 stages. Knights of the Round may not quite live up to the Final Fight series, but its lush medieval setting is a welcome change from gritty urban streets. The wide variety of moves at your disposal also makes it an exciting play. It comes in at number 99 on our list of the top 100 SNES games. Tune in tomorrow to see who will be 98. Thanks for watching. You are a young warrior, Ryu, a sword-swinging descendant of the Light Dragon clan. To bring peace to the land and save your abducted sister, you must travel through 10 exotic areas. You will even go inside a stone robot and use its lasers to blast a rock obstacle. During your adventure, you'll rest at inns, learn to transform into different types of dragons, fish for weapons, buy weapons, herbs, and foods in shops, and add anthropomorphic animals to your party. Turn-based battles, which offer a 3/4 isometric perspective, are random and frequent. Certain bosses can continue battling even after their health bar has been depleted. Breath of Fire may not be as large as some other RPGs, and as with the last few Squaresoft games, the manual includes a rudimentary walkthrough, which makes it seem even shorter. However, it packs an awful lot of adventure into the space that it has. And it comes in at number 98 of our top SNES games of all time. Thanks for watching! A solid one-on-one fighter influenced by such titles as Street Fighter II and Fatal Fury King of Fighters, this game features characters from Ranma 1/2 anime and manga. Each character can punch, kick, jump, and throw enemies along with a few special moves. Certain characters have weapons, such as Kuwanji's giant spatula swing and Moose's broadsword and iron ball and chain attack. The graphics are colorful and nicely detailed, and the music has a rich Japanese sound, but it is obviously not taken from anime, nor are the voice effects. Modes of play include 1-player tournament mode, 2-player competition mode, and team challenge mode, in which each player chooses a team of 5 characters. Options include 3 difficulty levels, times of 30, 60, or 100 seconds, and 2 types of controller settings. A solid fighting game that is considerably enlivened by the goofy charm of its characters and situations, and it comes in at number 97 on our list. Thanks for watching! Is there any reason not to own this triple collection consisting of some of the 8-bit era's best action platform titles? This SNES cart increases visual details, remixes the music, and unless you're a purist, this is the best way to play these games. Each of these games offers the same brutal difficulty they were known for. Nothing has been left out or tweaked for the sake of making it accessible. There are no extra power-ups, magic, or levels. The simple gameplay of the original became a classic because of the engine, giving players an unmatched sense of control with a meager 2 buttons. The sequel added to the repertoire, beefing up Ryu Hayabusa's power and wide variety of stages to run through. The third added even more, this time letting players feel like professional gamers as they bounce and climb along the walls. This isn't a cart to push the Super NES though, it's about having 3 of the best NES games ever made in one place. Aside from the soundtrack issues, it's an excellent set and convenience at its best, and it comes in at number 96 on our list. In Battletoads and Battlemaniacs, protagonists Rash and Pimple punch, kick, run, throw enemies, use weapons, and pull off a variety of wacky fighting moves, including the Battletoad Butt, Flying Battle Axe, Big Bad Boot, Ball and Chain, Sidearm Slice, Anvil Slice, and the Jawbuster. These fun fighting techniques, which include combos, are used for battling a bevy of creatively designed enemy types. At certain points, the battling amphibians, who are on a mission to rescue their brother Zitz, will ride a speeder bike and a tractor. Along with cartoonish and funny yet challenging beat-em-up action, the game has a variety of obstacles to jump over or otherwise avoid. There's platforming as well, some of which scrolls vertically, and sometimes you ride a floating disc. In the Ruckus 2-player mode, you can select whether or not you want to be able to hit the other player. The sequel to Battletoads for NES ups the ante with larger characters, fairer, though still difficult gameplay, and as expected, superior graphics and sounds. Well, my father was the Ralph Cramden of the house, the undisputed king. My mother ruled Side Pocket with an iron fist. After we would go to school, she would clean the house, get dinner ready, and play games like Vegas Stakes, Super Mario All-Stars, and Side Pocket when she was bored after her soaps. Her skill wasn't just a matter of playing every day. Great in math, she understood angles and speeds in ways that my father and her young boys did not. One Saturday night, she ran the table on my little brother in a way that confirmed her dominance forever. Knocking in a ball on the break, she then proceeded to hit every ball into a pocket before finishing him off with a bank shot that sent the 8-ball into the pocket she called. My father, brother, and I just stood there in silence. It was scary. She didn't have anything to say either. The woman that cooked for us, cleaned for us, and loved us more than anyone else in the world now wore the pants in the family. Ashamed, my brother and I went to our rooms to play G.I. Joes, and my dad couldn't even make eye contact with his wife. She was that good. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is my favorite game in the franchise. Each level has a special task that you may perform, a sub-quest if you will. These tasks vary greatly and include things such as playing minigames, building sculptures, collecting items, and in one case, destroying Metroids for Samus. While Kirby does not have to perform these tasks, doing so will earn him a collectible, called a Heart Star. If Kirby successfully collects all of the Heart Stars in a world, he will banish dark matter from that section of Popstar upon the defeat of the area boss. Once an area has been cleansed, the boss becomes good, and going to the boss stage only results in the boss standing by a warp star for Kirby to get on. Personally, I love that detail. The Kirby series continued with Kirby 64, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, and various other offshoots and sequels. Kirby's Dream Land 3 finds itself at spot number 93 in our top SNES games of all time. I knew I'd like The Adventures of Batman and Robin when I rented it one summer afternoon in 1995, but I wasn't expecting the best superhero game I'd ever played up until that point. At a time when it seemed that superheroes only belonged in side-scrolling beat-em-ups, Konami dialed things back to a more traditional platforming approach in Adventures, all while dialing up the respect for the Dark Knight and his universe. As much as I loved Sunsoft's 2 NES Batman titles, they felt more like good action games that happened to star Batman than they did actual Batman games. Other than the Joker, the Cape Crusader was fighting unrecognizable enemies and relying on toys he doesn't actually use. Here we have Batman going toe-to-toe with the roughest of his rogues gallery, throwing batarangs to disarm thugs, all surrounded by an aesthetic ripped straight from the greatest animated series of all time. Not until Neversoft's Spider-Man would we see a superhero console game that respected its character as much as it valued stellar gameplay. Okay. Aero Fighters is one of those SNES shmups that should have been played by more people but wasn't, due to the low distribution by its publisher. I remember renting this game from a local video store, bringing it home for the weekend, and almost immediately asking my parents to go back to the store because it was so damned hard. Fortunately, my parents did not acquiesce to my demands. This game, this beautifully challenging game, takes time. As I sat in my room that weekend dying over and over again, something started to click. The game began to reveal itself to me, one game over at a time, and once I had got the hang of it, what a game I had. Aero Fighters let me pick from 4 different characters, each with unique weapons and mass attacks, and added in vertically to the levels. In certain areas, buildings were tall enough that I needed to blow them up first to attack the enemy planes. I was always impressed when a game did something new or different, and this one certainly did. And Aerofighters comes in at number 91 on our list. Thanks for watching. Castlevania Dracula X seems to get a lot of flack in the community as being an inferior port of the sensational PC Engine CD, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. However, I tend to view it more as a reimagining of the game, utilizing everything the SNES has to offer. The hardest thing about playing Dracula X is to not compare it to the much heralded Super Castlevania 4, and just take the game at face value. Dracula X is a throwback to the classic NES games, and everything from the controls to the enemy placement harkens back to those titles, but it doesn't offer as many cheap deaths as the 8-bit iterations. There are many amazing graphical achievements in Dracula X, such as the fire effects in the first level, which set the precedent as to what graphics on the Super Nintendo are capable of. Holistically, Dracula X is a solid experience, and if you look at things without comparing it to the other beast of an SNES game, it really does stand out on its own, offering a fun gaming experience. Wolfenstein 3D for SNES puts you in the role of BJ Blazkowicz, a top Republic spy and terminal action seeker. Your job as a one-man army is to complete 6 multi-stage missions. Thanks to Nintendo's family-friendly policies, the Hitler character's mustache was removed and his name was changed to Statmeister Meisterstadt. Swastikas and other World War II references were not included, enemy guards now spoke English, red blood was colored gray, giant mutated rats replaced dogs, and crosses were removed, even though games like Castlevania contain crosses. As you work your way through the game, you can find extra ammo, keys for opening doors, food and first aid kits to replenish your health, 4 types of treasures, chest, chalice, crowns, and scepters. Each time you grab 50 treasures, you gain an extra life. You're always equipped with a pistol and knife, and you can add a machine gun and a chain gun to your arsenal. You can brandish 2 weapons not found in the computer game, a flamethrower and a rocket launcher. I don't remember who actually wrote the words, but just before the release of the Super Nintendo, I remember reading impressions of ActRaiser that included the sentiment that it was like having a symphony inside your SNES. Of course I had to check this out for myself, and sure enough, ActRaiser's soundtrack was like nothing I'd ever heard before. This was before I'd experienced CD-ROM gaming, so hearing such rich sound during gameplay was completely new and exciting for me. It made the whole thing feel truly cinematic. I fell in love with the game right away, even though it's not the most exciting thing ever. The village building bits slowly progressed to a crawl, though I really liked the drama that would play out in each area. Plus, I don't think I've ever played a game before or since where I controlled a naked cherub shooting monsters high above mud huts. The action isn't all that impressive. The bosses, however, are at least really impressive looking, and I always loved how a statue of my badass, evil smiting deity would sit in each land for eternity, sword triumphantly raised to the sky. International Superstar Soccer consists of 30 international teams representing their respective countries, all of them having the ability to compete with each other in a variety of different modes. These modes can range from the amiable exhibition game to a winner-take-all World Series or World Cup tournament. The most impressive mode, however, is the scenario mode, in which players take control of a team during a particular scenario. Basically, what that is a match that has already started that you have to win in order to clear a particular scenario. The scenarios differ. You may be winning in 1 or losing by 2. Whatever it is, the ultimate goal is the same, which is to win. The graphics are good for this game considering the time it came out, and the controls are another positive aspect as well. Overall, the game is the best soccer game on the SNES. If you're a soccer fan, you should aspire to make this game part of your SNES collection, and it comes in at number 87 in our list of the top 100 SNES games. Developed by the creators of Kirby's Adventure, Arcana is a magic-infused dungeon crawler with an unusual twist. The characters are represented as cards. The turn-based battles, which are limited in terms of animation, are fought via spirit cards, each of which has an attribute that is effective in attacks against enemies of certain other attributes. There's a central hub village where you can purchase weapons, stock up on items, and save your progress. The individual dungeons are dotted around a world map, with each having to be tackled in sequence. Enemy encounters are random and come without warning, consisting of turn-based combat involving your team of adventurers and multiple foes. The levels themselves showcase far more variety than those seen in Shining of the Darkness. Instead of being exclusively confined to underground environments, Arcana places you in ice palaces, forests, and other locations. It's even possible to summon an elemental spirit to become a member of your party and fight on your behalf. The future of the kingdom is in the cards. Secret of Evermore has players guiding a brave boy and his shape-changing dog through the fantasy world of Evermore, comprised of prehistoric jungles, ancient civilizations, medieval kingdoms, and futuristic cities. The utopian world was created by Professor Sidney Ruffelberg, but sinister forces turned into a living nightmare. You control the boy from a top-down perspective as he explores Evermore. You begin with a Bone Crusher sword, and during your travels you collect other weapons. When you confront an enemy, press B to attack. If your power meter is not fully charged, you'll unleash a weak attack. You can also use magic, which employs an unusual alchemical technique involving the combination of ingredients. And certain ingredients can only be found by using the dog's powerful sniffer. Other activities in the game include gathering clues, purchasing items, resting at inns, cutting through underbrush, and using alchemy to get past rock chasms. Secret of Evermore is a follow-up but not a sequel to The Secret of Mana, and it comes in at number 85 on our list. When my friend Eric and I saw the first screenshots of NBA Jam in a magazine back in 1993, we thought it was the dumbest game ever. The players were soaring 10 feet above the rim and performing preposterous slam dunks. After reading several enthusiastic reviews, however, I broke down and bought the game anyway. That turned out to be a major milestone in my game-playing career because NBA Jam quickly became the premier sports game of its time. An impressive translation of a popular arcade game with the same crisp graphics, fluid animation, responsive controls, catchy music, and clear sound effects. NBA Jam does have a few minor flaws. The turbo is so plentiful that you can practically use it during the entire game, and blocking shots is nearly impossible. Non-dunking players like John Stockton can slam, destroying what little realism there's left. Lastly, the computer has this annoying habit of making full-court last-second shots at the end of the game. No! This colorful and fun platformer, which is the SNES exclusive sequel to Joe and Mac, puts players in the title role of Congo, a monkey that was turned into a half-human by a magic ruby that fell from the sky. To rescue his girlfriend, Congette, he must traverse 35 levels spread across 6 multi-stage areas. To defeat cavemen, dinosaurs, pirates, and other enemies he'll come across, Congo can bop them with a club, which can also be used to break through natural barriers like rock. In addition, Congo can roll up and down hills and do a rolling attack, which helps give certain areas of the game a Sonic the Hedgehog type feel. If he gets hit, Congo will revert to monkey form. If he gets hit while he's a monkey, he'll lose a life. If he picks up a ruby, he can turn back into a half-human or briefly turn into Invincible Super Congo, if he gets the ruby while he's already half-human. Collecting 100 diamonds or 1 big diamond scores an extra life, and Sapphire spins a slot machine at the top of the screen. Given that I never owned it during SNES's heyday, Final Fight may be a surprising choice for one of my favorite games on the system, but I played it almost every weekend at my buddy Kevin's house, and from our perspective, no fighting game could touch it until Street Fighter II came out. It's a tough game, made even harder by the lack of simultaneous 2-player option, and since you're forced to pick, there's a dilemma of which character to choose, stronger but slower Mike Hager or quicker but smaller Cody. The action and graphics are incredible, and how can you not love facing enemies named for Axl Rose, Slash, Andre the Giant, but a boss dude named Abigail? Didn't expect that one. I did indeed favor Hager back in the day, while Kevin often chose Cody. We persisted too, even eventually finishing the game with our respective characters. I still remember the exhilaration of finally knocking out Mad Gear boss Belger at the end and watching him fly through the breaking window to his demise. For a pair of 13-year-olds, it truly felt like an incredible accomplishment. Prince of Persia has players battling baddies while trying to escape the castle dungeons of the evil Grand Vizier Jafar. To kill an enemy, players must let go of the D-pad so the prince will draw his sword. The prince can block an opponent's strike, and there are potions to drink, but care should be taken as some are poisonous. The castle is riddled with traps and puzzles, and the game must be completed in 2 hours, making for a tough journey. Similar to Pitfall for Atari 2600, the action does not truly scroll. Rather, when the prince goes past the edge of the playfield, the scene instantly changes to the next area. Another unusual aspect of the game is how the protagonist pulls himself up onto platforms. Further, the controls are purposely lagging, meaning there's a delayed reaction when the prince begins to walk, run, duck, climb, or jump. This can be problematic for those accustomed to more traditional platformers. Patient gamers will be rewarded with an involved quest comprised of 20 dangerous levels and some of the smoothest animations seen in a 16-bit title. R-Type 3 is truly a piece of art, with an amazing soundtrack, incredible graphics, near-perfect controls, great level design, and a nice variety of original enemies and bosses. It's also extremely difficult. After getting blown up 50 plus times and starting the same level over and over again, you can really feel the adrenaline pumping as you try your best not to smash the SNES controller into a million pieces. If the modern gaming term rage quit existed in the 90s, it would have been synonymous with R-Type 3. This is hands down one of the hardest, most punishing games ever created for the SNES. With enough skill, you can get past the harder parts of the game. The desire to see more levels, experience more of the awesome soundtrack, and see more cool bosses keeps me coming back. R-Type 3 has the unique honor of being the only game I refuse to ever own again, simply because I do not need to lose any more of my life to this menace. Now I understand the higher price this game commanded, at least metaphorically. There was indeed a high price to be paid.
Loosely based on Marvel's Infinity Gauntlet comic book series, War of Gems lets you play as one of 5 popular heroes, each with its own special moves, which are executed by pulling off Street Fighter II style button combos. Said heroes include Captain America, Iron Man, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and the Incredible Hulk. In addition, each character has a gem power move, such as Wolvesey's Berserker, which lets him shoot bolts of claw energy, and Spidey's Web Throw, which tangles up opponents. Characters differ in other ways as well, examples being Hulk's lumbering gait and Spidey's awesome agility. The objective is to thwart Thanos, who is intent on conquering the world by gathering all 6 Infinity Gems. You'll battle evil alter egos of such heroes as Deathlock, Hawkeye, The Thing, and Thor, along with such villains as Blackheart, Doctor Doom, and Magus. If you're a fan of Capcom's style, Marvel's comics, beat-em-ups, or fighting games, this is a must-play. As Ninja Cyborg Hagane, you have sworn revenge against the Koma clan, which plans to destroy the world. Your mission takes you through 5 multi-stage levels. Victory will be a formidable task, but you are equipped with many moves and weapons, including double jumps, wall jumps, somersaults, backflips, dragon punches, and flying kicks. Hagane, who wields a sword as his primary weapon, can also duck and slide. The action is fast and intense as you dodge lasers, destroy turrets, do plenty of platforming, and battle an assortment of exotic enemies. There are bosses and mini-bosses to battle as well. If you enjoy the Ninja Gaiden series or Shinobi 3, you should pick up a copy of Hagane: The Final Conflict, if that is, you can find it and afford it. Some sources say Hagane was a Blockbuster rental exclusive, but there are reports that it was also available at Electronics Boutique. Either way, it saw limited distribution and goes for big bucks these days, and it comes in at 78 on our list. As a mayor with godlike powers and access to past, present, and future technology, it's your job to build the city from the ground up and ensure that your citizens have everything they need. You will finance, build, and maintain houses, bridges, power plants, military bases, factories, airports, fire stations, roads, shops, a water supply system, and other staples of city life. Also, you'll want to beautify your city by adding trees, lakes, and ponds. Bulldozers are available for landscaping, changing the altitude of land, and dezoning residential, commercial, and industrial land. As your city grows, you must increase transportation routes and build more facilities for your citizens. High taxes, pollution, overcrowding, poor city planning, and other problems can drive away the masses, putting your city's future in doubt. Natural disasters and monsters can also have an effect on the success of your city. The graphics look okay and the sound effects are fun, but the music is repetitive. The control interface is awkward, especially if you're used to the mouse and keyboard from the computer version. In the 90s, nearly every week, my buddies and I would get together around my parents' dining room table and dive into some epic miniature-fueled RPG action. Oddly enough, in those days, there were precious few video games that actually had a satisfying Tolkien-esque setting and characters. As a result, I was instantly drawn to Capcom's The King of Dragons, and man, I played it to absolute death. It was bliss for a kid like me, hacking away against the likes of orcs, skeletons, and of course dragons. Capcom had an astonishing amount of game-making magic back then, and the King of Dragons was a highlight. Excellent graphics and a nice selection of characters to field were the best things about the game, but it had top-notch controls as well, along with a wide breadth of locations to fight in. To me, it was like the world of D&D had been digitized, and that was precious indeed. Capcom also made Knights of the Round right around this time, which is a great game as well, and a few years later they actually produced a few titles based on D&D itself. A rogue band of pirates called the Hackers has invaded the idyllic town of Rococo, using androids to terrorize its citizens. A young boy who recently moved to Rococo longs to be an inventor like his father, Dr. Akihibara. To save the day, he builds and programs robots to fight the enemies. The boy, who you control, can build and maintain up to 3 different robots, strategically customizing them with various weapons, special attacks, and degrees of speed, energy, power, and defense. You will spend much of the game viewing the action from overhead, traveling through an assortment of areas, conversing with townfolk, and using items for drilling in rock and walls, disappearing, opening locked doors, controlling the weather, changing into a mouse, and more. Battles use the variation of the active time battle system in which you must wait for the charge meter to fill before making your move. Setting Robotruck apart from the pack is your ability to combine items, including your own inventions, to create other items. This title was released as Slapstick in Japan. Uncharted Waters New Horizons expands upon pirate exploration theme by letting players portray 6 different characters. You must organize a powerful fleet with up to 25 different historical ships. After outfitting your fleet with a crew and provisions, you will plot your course using an overhead map. While at sea, you control the direction of the ship, whose speed is affected by wind, currents, and the number and health of your crew. You will travel to more than 130 exotic destinations, discovering and plundering more than 180 treasures. The game switches to turn-based, top-down strategy during naval combat. According to Moby Games, you will move ships in order to obtain trajectories needed to fire cannons at enemy ships, or run alongside enemy vessels in order to board them. If a player's flagship attacks the flagship of an enemy fleet, they can challenge the opponent to a duel. If accepted, the game changes to side view of 2 captains engaged in the fight. New Horizons is a great geography lesson tied in with a real history lesson. Final Fight 3 is my favorite brawler for SNES, but it happened in a roundabout way. Since the game was released in '95, I was already in the transitional phase of waiting for Nintendo 64 and PlayStation to drop, so I wasn't even aware that Capcom was making a 3rd installment. Fast forward a few months to my 14th birthday, and along with getting an N64, I opened a brand new copy of Final Fight 3. I could barely believe what I was seeing. I first experienced the franchise at my local video game store, which had a Final Fight arcade cabinet. I was blown away by it. Double Dragon and Renegade were always my go-tos, but Final Fight stunned me with its realistic sprite design. On console, I enjoyed playing Final Fight 1 and 2, but usually gravitated toward the Streets of Rage series on the Genesis, since those games seemed to have more depth. However, that changed once I played Final Fight 3. The inclusion of movesets from the Street Fighter 2 series, the super bar for combos, and branching level paths had me sold. Today the card is a bit on the expensive side, but for any fan of 16-bit brawlers, it's a must-own. Some gamers might write Earthworm Jim off as kind of a bad attitude knockoff of Sonic the Hedgehog, but I think the game deserves all the praise it gets. While an Earthworm with a robotic power suit has a sort of built-in smirking sense of humor, the game's grander ambitions really set it apart. With the animated style of characters, bosses, and backgrounds possessing a kind of frenetic Chuck Jones feel, it really has a lot to look at as you whip and shoot your way through the levels. And cleverness abound in large and small ways. The goal of saving Princess What's-Her-Name and other nods proved that EJ was also a clever send-up of cliches and tropes of that era's action games. While Earthworm Jim will probably always be seen as a Sega Genesis product, the game really shone on the SNES. It also was one of the first games that got me thinking about the craft of character design. The characters and overall art direction of EJ were so unique and powerful, with their hand-animated look really bringing something different to the table for the SNES. Not bad for a guy with no arms or legs. A follow-up to Prehistoric and Prehistoric 2 for home computers, Prehistoric Man puts you in a role of short, fat, wild-haired, bulbous-nosed caveman named Sam, journeying through 23 gorgeous levels of lush jungles, burning forests, crystal caverns, 8-man villages, icy wastelands, and other areas. Graphical effects include fog, parallax scrolling, volcanoes erupting in the background, water reflections, and more. Sam swings the club in circular fashion to battle the many dinosaurs and other creatures he will encounter, but he can also find such weapons as bombs, grenades, axes, and spears. Sam can also jump on enemies. In addition, screaming will destroy every enemy on screen. Defeated enemies release bones that can be traded into a shop for such items as tips and advice, tickets to the next level, and save points, which are important because continues are limited. Here we have a game that's only 8 meg, yet it features a lengthy quest, amazing sound effects, quality music, a personal main character, and play mechanics to burn. How is this possible? The once bright and happy days of Zenobia are growing dark and cold. Evil runs rampant over the entire continent. The king is dead is heard in hushed whispers from shadowy men. Sage Rashidi, trusted advisor to King Gran, was seduced by the evils of power. Well in its grip, he slew the mighty king. He then joined forces with the evil Empress Endora, and the two of them ruled the land with terror, thus beginning the Zeta-Genian Empire. Now, almost 25 years later, the Empire rules with neither justice nor compassion. A group of hardy souls who are the last remaining members of the rebellion gather along the outskirts of Sharon. Outnumbered and outmatched, the rebellion desperately needs you, fearless gamer, to save the day by leading them to victory over the tyrannical empire. Secrets carried through the wind tell of Warren, a great wizard who can help you in your quest for justice. There are 200 types of weapons, spells, treasures, and other items to discover in 12 different game endings. Breath of Fire 2 continues the story of the first game with several returning characters and areas. Each of the colorful characters has unique actions, making them feel like special and worthy members of the team. Visually, the battle scenes are stunning, with crisp characters and monsters that unleash flashy abilities. Unfortunately, the pacing of the game and the need for excessive grinding holds it back from being great. Luckily, a few of these issues were fixed for the Game Boy Advance version. I didn't know about Breath of Fire 2 until my stepsister started spending her evenings glued to it. I'd sit down and watch her play the later segments for hours, intrigued by the art style and cool spells. If it wasn't for Breath of Fire 2, we wouldn't have found the common ground of RPGs and we may never have become friends. My frustration upon playing it again recently proves to me that she's way more patient than I am. Capcom has done an awesome job with Breath of Fire 2. This long, absorbing game offers plenty of story turns, intense battles, and intriguing characters. Mega Man X was nothing short of a revelation, but for me what it did most was make me wonder what the traditional Mega Man series would look like on the SNES. So when Mega Man 7 finally landed at my local electronics boutique, I went straight out and bought it, no rental needed. I loved how the creators managed to maintain that soulless expression on Mega Man's face while effectively modernizing everything else around him, including the crazy stuff that they did with the environments. Using Turbo Man's power to burn down the trees in Slash Man's stage, making the ghouls and ghost music play during Shade Man's stage, and how in the intro stage when the steamroller thing shot its mohawk at you, how cool was that? And then there was the Robot Museum. I must have entered that password to get there 100 times just so I could walk around and stare at those classic robot masters in their glass containers. And that medley of Gutsman, Heatman, and Snake Man's music, absolutely killer. This is a sequel that doesn't forget what made the first Super Bomberman so great. All your favorite power-ups are here. You'll find it typically isn't enemies or the environment that kills you. It's walking into your own explosions after you've failed to mentally map how the bombs will chain together. Death late in the game can be almost game-breaking, as it resets your power to almost nothing. As a result, some stages become insanely hard as you feel underpowered and ill-equipped to take them on. On the flip side though, nothing in the game poses much of a challenge to sufficiently powered up Bomberman. If you're on your own, there is fun to be had with Super Bomberman 2, which despite the many additions remains a simple, accessible game. Yes, it is at its best with friends, but for a lone player, it's not a game you should immediately dismiss. I like how easy it was to pick up and play. The upbeat tones and eye-popping graphics will keep you on the edge of your couch begging for more. When I was 8, Tiny Toon Adventures was a big deal. Everyone in school was watching it except for me. I wasn't really a fan of the show because I never really was huge into Looney Tunes. One day after practice, I went to my friend Danny's house and he had just gotten a copy of the game. Much to my surprise, I discovered that I really enjoyed it. The cart consisted of a bunch of cool minigames and the competition was fierce between me and Danny. For a long time after that, Wacky Sports Challenge remained in steady rotation on the SNES, whether we were at his house or mine. It was such a blast that sometimes my younger sister and his older brother would want to get in on the action and we would take turns playing each other. After spending so much time with the game, I got to know the characters better and began watching the show on a regular basis. As I watched, I enjoyed it more and more, and I began to understand some of the inside jokes of the game, which made the experience that much more fun. When I play the game nowadays, I get flooded with nostalgia for a simpler time in my life when I was a carefree kid, totally absorbed by the adventures of Buster Bunny and the gang. This oddball side-scroller has players evolving their character through 5 stages: the world before land, early creatures of land, age of dinosaurs, ice age, and early man. Players begin as prehistoric fish-like creature, swimming, jumping, and eating such creatures as eels, jellyfish, squid, sea slugs, and trilobites. Eating creatures earns you Evo points, which are used to purchase evolutionary body parts that upgrade your defense and attacking abilities. You'll eventually evolve into an amphibian and then a land mammal, and your mission will remain to evolve and eat more creatures, including such delicacies as horned lizards, prime frogs, and dinosaurs. There are bosses to dine on as well, including a shark, a queen bee, and a yeti. Evo is a game for very patient people because, like the evolution process itself, it takes a long time. The evolution part is the coolest feature in this game because you choose what you want to evolve: your jaw, your tail, or your fins. Drop your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. In Gradius 3, players pilot the Max, successor to the Warp Rambler. You begin the auto-scrolling action equipped with a standard Extron cannon, but you can add weapons by capturing red power pods that enemies leave behind. Each pod capture boosts the gauge at the bottom of the screen by 1 weapon. To activate the current engaged weapon, press the Power Up button. Early in the cycle, you should increase your speed at least once before powering up such weapons as secondary fire missiles and two-way You're battling your way through 10 levels of swarming enemies, environmental hazards, and huge bosses. Levels include the Dooms of Doom, the Carbonation Zone, Lava Them and Leave Them, Pop Rock Monolith, Light My Fire, Bacterian's Garden, the Grease Lightning Round, Mayor's on Parade, the Gauntlet, and Bacterian's Lair. Slowdown rears its head when the action gets hot and heavy, but this is still a fun game. Drop your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching.
The first game I ever played on the Super Nintendo was Super Mario World, but the game I was most interested in checking out was actually F-Zero. Coming from a racing family, I've always been partial to driving games, and the Genesis had already proven that the 16-bit consoles were going to take the genre to the next level. We'd all been hearing about the mighty Mode 7 for the better part of a year by the time SNES was released, so I couldn't wait to get my hands on what promised to be the next evolution of racing games. F-Zero didn't disappoint. The insane sense of speed right from the opening lap was mind-boggling, and it only got more intense from there. The overwhelming feeling that you were flying through a real world rather than a strip of asphalt that stretched on into an impossible distance was a total shift in the way racing games felt for me from that point forward. It was a nice bonus that the game played brilliantly on top of it all. I was even impressed by the explosion and resulting strip of wreckage whenever my hovercraft took too much damage or careened off course. Drop your memories in the comments. One of my favorite all-time SNES games is A Link to the Past, so it should be no surprise that I completely fell for Nintendo's marketing when it came to the illusion of Gaia. Nintendo really wanted folks to buy this game, so they pulled out all the stops. They made the font look like it was part of the Zelda series, they included a mini player's guide right in the box, they put out these awesome little fold-out ad pamphlet things in video game magazines with a $10 off coupon, and the first round of carts even came with a free t-shirt, which I proudly wore to school every week. And you know what? Nintendo was absolutely right to push this game because it's fantastic. From the amazing water effects in the first town to the epic score and gigantic bosses, Illusion of Gaia is truly Super NES gaming at its finest. It may not live up to some of the other legends on the platform, but it's an absolute must-play for anyone who's a fan of 16-bit games. It's also the reason I know the word scurvy, and it comes in at number 62 on our list. Based on the classic Microprose computer game, Civilization has you using strategy and cunning to found a civilization and bring it to maturity. The game starts off with a single tribe settling somewhere and creating a city. As the game progresses, you, enlisting the help of advisors, scientists, and warriors, will develop agriculture, manage resources, increase the population, construct buildings, build roads and railroads, develop new technologies, form an army, compete with rivals, sign peace treaties, and wage war on hostile neighbors. You will also explore new lands, build new cities, change the form of government, construct spacecraft, and much more, with the ultimate goal of settling a colony in outer space. Floods, plagues, pollution, and other setbacks will impede your progress, and you should try to keep your citizens happy. During the setup phase, you can set up the number of rival states operated by the computer, select your nationality, enter your leader's name, and customize your world according to landmass, temperature, climate, and age. Plagued by the choppy player movement, pixelated visuals, non-textured floors and ceilings, and slow gameplay, Doom for the Super Nintendo is a flawed, though still impressive port of ID's 1993 PC Classic, which was written for MS-DOS. The action only takes up 70% of the screen or so, thanks to an unadorned frame around the playfield, but a booming soundtrack, smooth strafing, and 22 levels of hellish shoot-'em-up mayhem make the game playable for those who don't own the PC version. The 22 levels are based on their computer counterparts, and the port includes all of the original secrets, monsters, bosses, and weapons. Thanks to memory limitations, the enemies are only animated from the front, meaning they always appear to face the gamer. The automap display uses the rotating and scaling of the SNES Super FX chip, with the entire map spinning around the player's position rather than the players being portrayed by an arrow. And Doom clocks in at number 60 on our list. I have no doubt that the rumors of controllers being smashed against walls over this game are true. However, from the moment I took the controller and began playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts in 1993, I was in heaven, instantly high on rediscovering the absolute thrill I had once found in the 80s arcade versions of Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts, two long-vanished arcade games I thought I would never play again. This challenging game proved to be one of the more difficult in the Ghosts and Goblins series, simply because there's a lot going on with it and a lot less time to react. But if you relax, take your shots, and learn from them, you will eventually succumb to convincing yourself that you're actually enjoying this ride through absolute hell on earth. Super Ghouls and Ghosts wasn't designed to be a relaxing, feel-good game like Zelda or Mario. It was designed to mess with you. For a lot of people who cut their gaming teeth on challenging arcade space shooters and quarter eaters in the 80s like Defender and Zaxxon, Super Ghouls and Ghosts appealed to players who hungered for a more aggressive application and gameplay. Tetris is the game I spent the most hours playing as a kid, by far. Not because it was my favorite all-time game, but because it was the game that came with the Game Boy. When I got the handheld system, I played it everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. At recess, the dinner table, while watching TV, when I was supposed to be asleep, you name it. The Game Boy Tetris theme song is forever stamped into my memory. Even when I play Tetris today, the idea of building up a wall of Tetris pieces and leaving just one sliver open for the moment you get a line, and then after what feels like forever, you finally get one, and you blast your entire game dropping that line for a Tetris. Man, that's still one of the most satisfying things ever. Soon after I discovered Dr. Mario and the cycle repeated, I spent hours upon hours trying to become a Dr. Mario master. This game actually got new life for me in 2016 with the release of the NES Classic, and I played it daily against my wife. At the end of the day, you can't beat having two top-notch puzzlers on the same cartridge. Drop your memories in the comments. Ridding the world of nuclear weapons is a bad idea, according to the storyline for Strike Gunner STG, which finds the nations of Earth vulnerable to alien attack because of said nuclear disarmament. This sets the stage for a bland, repetitious shooter where you fly your ship over such standard terrain as forest, desert, snow, and the standard enemies move in predictable patterns, but there's also giant bosses to battle, including an airship, an aircraft carrier, and a desert tank. When you begin the game, you can select from 15 different special weapons. And after you complete a stage, the special weapon you used is no longer available for the rest of the game. At the beginning of each stage, you'll select from the special weapons that are left. You can use the special weapon within the level until a red energy meter on the left side of the screen disappears completely. A two-player simultaneous mode is a welcome feature in most any shooter, but unfortunately it's plagued by slowdown here. The console version added 5 special weapons, and the final boss was redesigned and made easier to defeat. I was a Genesis kid growing up. Still, even though I had chosen my side in the great console wars, I was secretly jealous of a few SNES games, and one of the biggest was Star Fox. Practically every department store at the time had a SNES kiosk with this game because it was a great showpiece for the future of gaming, all on a modest 16-bit console. With its sluggish frame rate, weird controls, and ships constructed of maybe a dozen polygons, it looks incredibly quaint nowadays, but back in the 90s, I was enamored. Plus, its sound was incredible, from its stellar soundtrack, the emergency announcement as your ship launched, and the unintelligible blather of the characters during combat. Nintendo made a wise decision giving these simple shapes personality by putting you in a role of a group of intergalactic animals. So even though it's just furry Star Wars, it's still a notable change from all other bland space and fight sims that were typical on PCs. Unfortunately, Nintendo never seemed to know what to do with the Star Fox series after the original release. Lufia 2 was a staple of my 7th grade days. While largely barren of stores with games for sale, my town actually had a few places offering the game for rent, including a barely memorable place next to our nearest food city. We went through a period where we'd actually rent games on Sunday evenings, the end of the week as far as I was concerned, as we stayed the first part of the week at our dad's house in Shagbark, a gated community deep in the mountains of Tennessee. Many early mornings I would secretly wake up around 3 or 4 a.m. to play more Lufia 2 before getting ready to go to school. You just ain't lived until you've been in a small, barely habitable house deep in the woods and gotten up well before you should to play one of the best JRPGs America ever received. Some of my best gaming memories of that era, and I'm still trying to beat the world's most difficult trick. The story is good and dungeons are exciting due to many puzzles and the ability to avoid monsters. It's a vast improvement over the original and it comes in at 55 on our list. An offshoot of Arrow the Acrobat series, Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel casts former villain Zero in the role of hero. Somewhat similar to Sonic the Hedgehog, who inspired so many attitudinal platform characters, the jeans and bandana-wearing Zero runs, jumps, and flips his way through a variety of colorful worlds. Zero can also throw shurikens, lash out with nunchucks, swoop like a superhero, fly via jetpack, perform super dives, and collect Z-icons for points. And at certain points he drives a jet ski and a speedboat. Zero's mission is to defeat Jacques Le Sheep, an evil lumberjack trying to cut down a forest to create paper used for money counterfeiting. This entertaining game has more than its share of blind jumps and other cheap deaths, but lots of extra lives and unlimited continues make it easily beatable. Rated MA13, Zero is one of the edgier platforms of the era. The game plays a little faster and sounds a little better than the Genesis version. Drop your memories in the comments. Thanks for watching. Based on the classic 1989 computer game designed by Will Wright, SimCity for the SNES offers the same type of open-ended city-building gameplay. However, it does add a number of new features including multiple game speeds, new building types, the changing of seasons, and a revamped tutorial system in which nerdy Dr. Wright takes you through a practice mode, dishes out advice, and announces disasters, available rewards, and cities growing to new classification. In addition, Bowser is on hand to unleash Godzilla-type destruction. You view the game from overhead, moving a cursor around the screen to design your city. You can start from scratch on one of 1,000 different landforms or select from 8 built-in scenarios. Once you have 500,000 residents in your city, you're awarded an SNES-exclusive Mario statue. Maps take a long time to load, but this is an excellent port of a popular and immersive, time-consuming game. Drop your memories in the comments, and thanks for watching. I first laid eyes on Harvest Moon because my cousin curiously picked it up at a video game rental store. We brought it to his house, plugged it in, and fired it up. We had never even heard of Harvest Moon, let alone farming simulators, and after a few minutes of aimlessly running around, my cousin became bored and frustrated and shut it off. He wouldn't let me play because he thought the game was stupid. Not long after that, my Aunt Patty introduced me to Harvest Moon all over again. She showed me the basic mechanics, how to grow crops, how to raise animals, how to make the villagers like you, etc. I was blown away. It was so much different than Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country. I fell hard for Harvest Moon. It's safe to say Harvest Moon was the first video game I ever considered myself addicted to. Today, farming simulation games are some of my all-time favorites, and they're the most cathartic video games for me to play. It is, however, ultimately a game about chores, and as such will not be for everyone. But if you're curious, give it a try. Tending virtual crops might be more fun than you'd expect. Adapting movies into video games seemed like $1 million idea, one that quickly became the laughingstock of the game industry and making all players raise an eyebrow with each release. The Lion King was ported to almost every major system at the time. Initially, The Lion King is an incredibly faithful adaptation of the timeless Disney film with impressive voice bites and great renditions of the music. The colors of each stage are pleasant and the characters are well animated, setting up a lot of promise. Then, the infamous second level starts, dashing all hopes of the player finishing the game or even seeing the next level. Bouncing from monkey to monkey is incredibly frustrating, revealing just how sloppy the controls are. This level became bragging rights for anybody who could beat it, making those players legends on the playground. To this day, the second level of The Lion King is hailed as one of the most unnecessarily difficult gaming segments in Super Nintendo history. Alex McCumbers of Forever Classic. What are your memories of The Lion King? Drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching.